This is Valley News Live at 10.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Nashay Taylor. A man has died following a vehicle fire on I-94 near Buffalo. Shortly before 9 this morning, emergency crews were called to the eastbound lane of the interstate where they found the vehicle on fire. First responders pulled the man from the vehicle and began life-saving efforts. Unfortunately, he was pronounced dead on the scene. The fire is still under investigation. 3 people have now been displaced from their mobile home after a fire in Grand Forks. Emergency crews were called around 11:30 last night to 5200 block of Circle Drive. When they arrived, a shed was found fully involved in flames and had begun to spread to the nearby mobile home. Firefighters were able to put out the blaze in order to stop it from further spreading into the mobile home. The shed has been deemed a total loss. No injuries were reported. A home near Falston is now a total loss after a fire tore through it. The Polk County Sheriff's Office says they were called around 4:45 this morning. When deputies arrived, they found the house fully engulfed in flames. Authorities say no one was home at the time, and the fire is now being investigated by the Minnesota State Fire Marshal. Demonstrations are continuing this weekend following Friday's bombshell Supreme Court decision that reverses Roe v. Wade. Correspondent Wendy Gillette has more on the emotional reactions.
My body, my choice.
In Los Angeles, Charleston, South Carolina, and Philadelphia, abortion rights supporters demonstrated against the Supreme Court ruling that struck down Roe v. Wade.
We say pro-choice.
There are protests in around 50 cities across the country this weekend.
I think it's important that we have our choices,
including in Washington in front of the Supreme Court, where a couple of Virginia moms and daughters rallied together, worried about the reversal of other protections.
Next, they're going to come for birth control, and they're just going to keep going for everyone's rights. They've gone this far. Nobody thought they could do it, and they did it.
Abortion rights opponents were also at the court. Across the country, they welcomed the decision.
Here at the Office of the Pro-Life, we are consistent in our messaging of dignity of life from conception to natural death.
So I think the approach is every life is precious.
Most of the rallies were peaceful, though police tased one protester and arrested a handful of others in Greenville, South Carolina. 13 states already have laws that ban abortion almost immediately. Another 13 are likely to restrict access or enact bans soon.
We will use all legal authority of this office to decline to extradite people who are charged under other states' laws that criminalize providing, seeking, or obtaining reproductive health care services.
Mississippi's only abortion clinic at the heart of the Supreme Court case that overturned Roe is accepting patients until July 1st, when procedures will be banned in the state. It expanded its hours to see more women this weekend.
Right now, no state laws criminalize getting an abortion in a neighboring state where it's legal. But abortion rights supporters say they're concerned such legislation could eventually be enacted. And today, dozens of activists came out to a rally supporting reproductive rights held in downtown Grand Forks. Many people held signs, and cars passing by honked as they showed their support. The group was also heard chanting, "My body, my choice."
The court went against 50 years of precedent on a woman's right to make her own health care decisions.
Yesterday, Governor Tim Walz signed an emergency executive order aimed at protecting reproductive health care services in the state. And U.S. Senators from Minnesota Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith joined the governor yesterday for a joint response to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The court's overturning of the landmark court ruling is likely to lead to abortion bans in roughly half the states.
This is an extreme court, but again, there's 2 things that give me hope. The first is that we're having an election in November, and the vast majority of the people in this country do not agree what these Republican-appointed justices did.
Now, a poll released in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade found most Americans do not approve. Valley News Team's Alex Larson is here to break down those numbers. Alex?
Nishay, according to the poll which was conducted this weekend, it found that 59% of U.S. adults disapprove of the court's decision, with 41% approving. Among women, 2/3, 67% disapprove of the ruling, with just 33% approving. The poll also found that most Americans, 57%, now say they believe it's at least somewhat likely that the Supreme Court will eventually end or limit same-sex marriage. Meanwhile, 55% said the court would also likely end or limit access to birth control and contraception. Nishay?
Thanks, Alex. Meanwhile, South Dakota's Republican governor pledged today to ban mail-order abortion pills, but said women should not face prosecution for seeking them. Governor Kristi Noem indicated that she would put in place a plan approved by state lawmakers to restrict the pills. The majority ruling Friday by the court's conservative justices triggered abortion bans in South Dakota and elsewhere. But the governor said doctors, not their patients, would likely be prosecuted for knowing violations of what would be one of the strictest laws on abortion pills in the United States. In 1947, California became the first state in the U.S. to have a sex offender registry program, and over the years, other states have followed suit. North Dakota's law was passed in 1991. The registries are meant to give residents the tools to protect themselves from victimization. Now, North Dakota's registry is getting an upgrade to provide residents more information. The website sexoffender.nd.gov will now display photos of all offenders regardless of risk. It will also offer additional search functions to determine offender location and description of crimes. Individuals can also sign up to receive notifications about any offender. Crimes that would require someone to register on North Dakota's list range from indecent exposure to rape to various offenses against children, like labor trafficking. As of last week, there were more than 16,000 sex offenders with a requirement to register in North Dakota. Meanwhile, a semi caught on fire this afternoon on I-29. According to the North Dakota Highway Patrol, a semi was traveling on the interstate when it became engulfed in flames. Authorities say the rear brakes of the trailer caught on fire. The 38-year-old driver of Winnipeg pulled over onto the shoulder and noticed the back of the trailer overrun by flames. Firefighters from the Fargo Fire Department were able to put out the flames. The driver was not hurt in the incident. One of the southbound lanes was shut down for about 3 hours. Russian forces seized full control of an eastern city of Ukraine as other cities in the country continue to be under attack. Cole Higgins has more.
Explosions rocking the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv early Sunday. Russian missiles hitting a residential area, including the backyard of a kindergarten and a 9-story apartment block, trapping some under the rubble of their homes. Police say at least one person is dead and 6 more injured as search and rescue operations continue.
Losing loved ones is the worst fate, she said. We do not deserve this.
Ukrainian officials say the multiple airstrikes may be a possible message from Russian President Vladimir Putin as G7 leaders gather in Germany for their annual summit. U.S. President Joe Biden and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson formally announcing Sunday that the G7 countries will ban the import of Russian gold, the country's second largest export after energy. Biden with a clear message for his G7 counterparts.
Putin has been counting on from the beginning that somehow NATO would and the G7 would splinter, but we haven't, and we're not going to.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson urging the U.S. to keep up the pressure on Putin.
This is something that America historically does and has to do, and that is to step up for peace and freedom and democracy. And if we let Putin get away with it and just annex, conquer sizable parts of a free, independent, sovereign country, then the consequences for the world are absolutely catastrophic.
I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
While President Joe Biden is in Germany attending the G7 summit, he outlined plans for $200 billion in global infrastructure projects. He said the U.S. aims to help finance the projects with both government and private sector funding. The projects will be centered around 4 key areas, including combating climate change with clean energy technology, expanding internet access, and upgrading healthcare infrastructure.
I want to be clear. This isn't aid or charity. It's an investment that will deliver returns for everyone, including the American people and the people of all our nations. It will boost all of our economies. It's a chance for us to share our positive vision for the future.
President Biden says the goal is to collectively mobilize nearly $600 billion from the G7 by 2027. Later on Valley News Live at 10, more than 100 vintage cars rode through downtown Fargo today. But up next, Summer has a first look at your forecast.